A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to primaries and elections generally, so as to provide that the text portions of ballots produced by ballot marking devices shall be counted for vote tabulation and recounts purposes instead of machine coding, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Ethics recommends that this do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burns of the 23rd District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Ethics offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 189, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to elections and primaries generally, so as to provide that the text portions of machine mark of ballots produced by ballot marking devices shall be counted for vote tabulation and recount purposes instead of any machine coding, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the General Assembly of Georgia, Section 1, Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to elections and primaries generally is amended in Code Section 21-379.23 relating to requirements for ballot display, the role of Secretary of State, and printed paper ballots controls during recount by revising subsection D as follows. D. The text portion of the paper ballot marked and printed by the electric ballot marker indicating the elector's selection shall constitute the official ballot and shall constitute the official vote for purposes of vote tabulation. Any recount conducted pursuant to Code Section 21-495 and any audit conducted pursuant to Code Section 21-498. The official tabulation count of any ballot scanner shall be based upon the text portion of the machine mark, provided that such mark clearly denotes the elector's selection and does not use a QR code, barcode, or similar coding of such ballots, and not any machine coding that may be printed on such ballots. Section 2. All laws and parts of laws in conflict with this act are repealed. A minority report has been filed. That completes the order, Mr. President.
I recognize the senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, good afternoon. I'm delighted to see all of you came back from a hearty lunch, and I would remind you that in the famous words of Elizabeth Taylor, who said to her 8th husband, "I won't be keeping you long." So, let's look at Senate Bill 189. I'm grateful. I believe the entire bill was read to you while we had an opportunity to reconvene. So I won't bore you with the details of rereading the bill. It does one straightforward thing. It eliminates QR codes. It eliminates QR code. Let me say it one more time. It eliminates QR codes. The biggest challenge that a voter has is knowing that their vote was correctly recorded. I've been working on this for the last 2 years. I've been working with technology companies. I've been working with the Secretary of State's office. I've been working with colleagues. And what you have is a very straightforward bill that eliminates any non-readable code on the ballot. So, the voter, the elector, can actually read who they voted for and how they voted. No QR codes, no barcodes, no marks that are non-human readable. Okay? It does a couple of things. It helps people have confidence that their vote was accurately recorded. It also ensures that when you look at your ballot, you can see how it was marked. You can do it by reading the actual text character, the font on the text on the summary ballot, or you can read it by the mark on the absentee ballot or the hand-marked absentee option. So, straightforward bill. We're working with the Secretary of State as far as implementation is concerned. I would like to touch base. I recognize the minority report, and I disagree with most of it. this is hardly going to create chaos. It's actually going to create clarity. So no chaos, but the reality is people will actually be clear in how they choose to vote. Now, one thing that I appreciate the minorities report highlighting, we are working with the Secretary of State in his office in a technology that would allow us to do a full verification recount on our ballots. And we believe that we're very close to that opportunity, and we continue to work through the challenges. But at the end of the day, we want to ensure that voters have confidence in their elections. I would like to thank the minority leader, the senator from the 55th, because she and committee chose to support legislation SB 189. So, there's not a lot more to say. Let's eliminate QR codes. Let's make sure that electors can read the ballot and be clear about who they chose to vote for, and let's move forward. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the well.
The senator has yielded. Senator, I thought you served in Congress a little bit. You're supposed to be able to draw things out a little bit more than that. I recognize the senator from the 2nd. Speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator from 23rd disagrees with the minority report and understand his position somewhat. I always talk about making things in plain English so everyday folk can understand. My grandfather, Edward Bonds, was a carpenter from Pinpoint, Georgia. He could not read nor write, but he understood something that was a very time-tested tradition as being a carpenter, and it's measure twice, cut once. What SB 189 is the ability not to measure at all, just start cutting. What are we cutting? Well, you talk about scanning ballots, taking the QR code off of ballots, the text portion, how will it be scanned? Well, in 2019, we spent $100 and some odd million on the equipment that we have today. $100 million or more. And now in 2024, you're going to tell me that we're going to need new equipment, because that equipment can't do what this bill is talking about. And so with that, Mr. President, I would just tell you this bill is not going to do what we needed to do. It's going to cost us some money in small counties, rural counties. We're just not going to make it happen. And I don't know how the senator from 23rd is going to make those ends meet, but some counties just don't have the money. And with that, Mr. President, I'm going to just go ahead and yield the well.
Senator from the 41st, for what purpose do you rise?
The question? We rise to call the question.
Well, you have that right. Is there objection to the senator from the 44th? Got several objections. Senator, I guess you get the opportunity to close debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I kind of thought this was going to be straightforward and bipartisan. Don't understand why folks don't want to read their own ballot. I'd ask the senator from the 2nd, can you read a QR code, Senator? Can any of you read what's on that mark? And the answer is no. You don't have the ability to read the mark because it's encoded. This bill simply removes the code from the ballot. Now, I've got a grandson who's 12 years old, and he's technologically very savvy. He can't read a QR code. Neither can you. Matter of fact, he can't even read a barcode. Can't imagine why. But you know what he can read? He can read English. He can read the printed word. Now, I want to go back to 2019. I appreciate the senator pointing out that we went through a very extensive process to make sure that ballots in Georgia were secure, and we chose a vendor who utilized a QR code technique to encode the ballot. At the time, in 2019, how many years ago was that? 5 years ago? At the time, the technology did not allow for us to read the actual text on the ballot. Technology wasn't there. For the last 2 years, we have been researching the technical ability to scan the actual ballot. We already scanned the absentee ballot. We already scanned the actual emergency ballot. The only ballot that we code is the electronic ballot that we use with our ballot marking devices. This bill would utilize new technology that would allow us to read the actual text of that ballot. You know, again, the senator and the minority report claims it's going to cost gazillions of dollars. I'm not sure how many zeros are behind a gazillion, but that's not the case. Actually, we're in discussions now with the Secretary of State's office to do a review, a full verification review, utilizing this technology for Georgia in 2024. I hope we can do that. I want to thank the Secretary and his staff for working with us on that. I'm delighted to see the minority party in their report indicate that they would be supportive of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to prove a couple things. We're going to prove that we can read the actual ballot, remove the QR code, and read the actual ballot. We're also going to prove that every ballot cast will be available electronically in image form so that we can all go back and look at every ballot cast in Georgia. I think those are two positive things. Now, this bill is not addressing that issue. This bill addresses simply removing the QR code from a ballot and requiring that any mark be removed that is not in human readable form. Now, not chaos, it's clarity. It's not confusion, it's clarity. What is the price? The answer is not much compared to the confidence in Georgia's elections. We're now in about the 6th year of our current contract and voting systems, and we're looking to the next generation, the next opportunity, the next challenge. This is a path to make sure that that next challenge is prepared for and ready to move forward. So, I appreciate the consideration by my colleagues in the Senate in support of SB 189. I would ask all my colleagues to support this bill, and I would ask that you vote yes as we move forward with SB 189. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator has yielded. Senator from the 22nd, what purpose do you rise?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Actually move to reconsider the call of the previous question.
Senator has moved to reconsider the calling of the question. Is there objection to it? Objection. All right. All those in favor. Y'all want to just do it by a show of hands? All those in favor of the senator's motion. Well, this is in the motion to reconsider. We'll show of hands. Rise, stand, to be counted. Reverse. On the motion, the yeas are 20 and the nays are 26, so the motion fails. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objections to the adoption of the committee substitute? Senator from the 42nd, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I do believe that a minority report was filed on this particular measure and just wanting to make sure that that is able to be spoken to.
You know, Senator, the minority report, you're exactly right. It was filed. But you remember call for the previous question to be ordered, then cut off
Parliamentary
debate.
inquiry. I believe that even after the previous question is ordered, the minority report still remains to be spoken to.
Well, I tell you what, since y'all were so good at getting here at 2:30 today, back in time, we'll hear the minority report to close out debate. State your inquiry. State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that we've already closed debate and called for the question?
It is true, Senator. It is true, Senator. So.
President, I'd like to present the minority report. Thank you, Mr. President. To my colleagues in the Senate, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. Now, I'm only going to go back 5 years. Granted, that's before the pandemic started, and I know most of us can't remember that far back. But the year was 2019, and the bill in question was House Bill 316. It was in the Ethics Committee, and we had to have this legislation in order to allow for a new type of voting machine, because the old voting machines were DREs. That stood for Direct Recording Electronic Voting Machine. There was no paper trail. So we wanted to update our machines to BMDs, which are ballot marking devices. So we had to have enabling legislation to allow for ballot marking devices. And there were a lot of demonstrations, voting machine demonstrations at that time, all over the Capitol. And each of them had unique features and all kinds of differences. But there was a couple of particular kinds of machines that instead of using QR codes had what we called text recognition, so that you could print out a ballot, check your ballot to see which names you selected, and then that ballot went into the machine, and instead of it reading a QR code, it would actually read the text that you were able to check. So those machines were available at the time. They could have been chosen. Now, when the debate came up in the Ethics Committee, and I know a number of you were here during that time, some of you weren't, but I carried an amendment that eliminated the QR code in the law because I was very concerned, as were many constituents, that you cannot check a QR code. But you can check the text that's in the ballot. I offered this amendment, and the amendment was voted down on party lines. I remember saying at the time that this was going to come back and bite you all, and it has. Now, shortly after that, I remember that the Senate Democrats were in a retreat, and a gentleman from the Secretary of State's office came to talk to us about the contract for the new voting machines. It was stated at that time, in my memory, that once the technology was approved for this particular voting machine that we ended up buying, the Dominion machines, that once the technology for text recognition was approved, that it was within the contract that was approved by the EAC, which is the Election Assistance Commission. That's the regulatory body that approves new voting technology. Once Dominion got that approval for text recognition, that the contract that was entered into in Georgia would eliminate the QR code. So I was really happy to hear that. And all we were doing was waiting on the EAC. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And this never happened. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But at this point in the game, the time for that has passed. The window is closed. We spent $120 million on these machines. I believe that was bond funding, so we're still paying for it. The technology didn't get approved, I guess. I don't know what happened. But all I know is we have an election around the corner, and there is not time to deal with all this new technology now. There was plenty of time to do it, but the Republicans chose not to. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senator from the 23rd, would you like to close or give a 2-minute response? All right. Senator from the 55th, you have your light on. Senator from the 55th, you have your light on. Oh, you had a question. Well, Senator's yielded the well. All right, the previous question has been called. So we're at the posture of voting on this. All those in favor of the adoption of the committee substitute, on the adoption of the committee substitute authored by the senator from the 23rd, all those in favor will vote yea, all opposed nay. Oh, is there objection? No objection. Secretary will unlock the machine. Oh. Senator from the 7th, what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true that a QR code is just a fancy barcode, the same type of code you can find on a can of peas or the back of your driver's license?
Senator, I'm not sure about your question. On the passes of the bill, the yeas are 31, the nays are 22. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. I'm glad y'all came back from lunch so spirited. I'm gonna let y'all go hungry next time. So, all right. I recognize the majority leader for a motion. Oh. Hold on. For the motion, I recognize the pro tem for an announcement.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. So Friday should be an easy day for us, but to add to that, we'll do John Bullock Day. So everyone wear your well-pressed blue jeans or whatever you want to accommodate that. So that'll be our dress code on Friday. Thanks.
Recognize the majority leader for motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reminder, tomorrow is Judiciary Day, so wear your finest, you lawyers in the room. The judges will be watching. Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, February the 7th.
The majority leader has moved. Secretary reads the announcements.
The State and Local Governmental Operations Committee will meet upon adjournment in 125. The Judiciary Committee will also meet upon adjournment in 307 of the CLOB. The Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee will meet in 450 at 4:30 p.m. and the Ethics Committee will meet in 307 of the CLOB at 5:30 p.m. The Rules Committee and Science and Tech Committee were both canceled. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Majority leader has moved that. Does any other senator have any other announcements? Oh, and recognize the Appropriations Chair for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, the House has passed the amended 24 budget out of committee. They'll be on the floor tomorrow. We will start our subcommittee meetings tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. 7 a.m. Please watch the calendar. If you have any questions, please grab me to the side. Thank you, Mr. President.
The majority leader has moved the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, February 7th. Whenever we have the State of Judiciary tomorrow, so remind you of that. All those in favor of the majority leader's motion will signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Ayes clearly have it. Have a good day.